Let's move to our second main section here. Jesus is all I need because he is the author of the new creation. This is verses 18 through 20. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, and in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of the cross. It's a great declaration. It's very comforting. Jesus Christ is the head of the church. It gives me great relief because it reminds me I'm just an under-shepherd. My job is to point you to him. I'm not the one who has to control and lead and do everything. It's Jesus Christ who does it all. Leaders, if we really want to serve the church, it's pointing them to Christ. It's depending upon Jesus Christ. It's recognizing this is his church. He is the head. We're just here to serve and point others to him. So one of the great dangers that I see attacking this doctrine that Jesus Christ is the head of the church is good old pragmatism. See, we need to come together and serve Christ, worship Christ, uniting together to worship him. But it's easy to come together for a purpose other than that. It's easy to come together for a works-oriented social group. We can easily get bogged down in what we do and how we do it and how we can fix things. Pragmatism is a danger. We want to serve. We want servants, but it's servants who are wanting to serve under Christ and his headship. Servants who are looking to glorify him. It's too easy to want to come in and figure out how we can fix things, how we can serve. Now, the first thing we do when we come in is we seek how can we glorify God? How can we honor the head? We are praying that we will be able to adopt a new constitution that will have elders. I think this is biblical. I think it will help the church. But it's not going to fix the church. Getting a simple declaration that we're going to get elders, it's not going to fix anything. That in itself. Because what we have to have are elders who are going to serve the head humbly, and a body who's going to serve the head humbly, and those will be united. Having elders is not going to fix anything if we're not committing to loving the Lord our God with all our heart and all our strength. Let us not fool ourselves that getting a document prepared that's going to put things in order is going to fix anything. No, it's when we are actually loving God and focused on his headship. The beauty of the gospel is the church doesn't depend upon anyone but Jesus. We're all expendable. He doesn't need any of us. But then he decides to incorporate us all into his purpose. He doesn't need us, but he actually brings us in and he says, I can use you. And the way you'll be most useful is when you're most committed to him. The beauty of the gospel is that it's all dependent upon Jesus. It isn't dependent upon us. We get to work for him and with one another. As I think about the headship of Christ, my mind immediately went to John 17. It's Christ's high priestly prayer. One of the last things he truly prayed for the church. And one of the main themes of that prayer is that the church will be unified. We have a sweet unity here. I think there's a sweet love that is it was very attractive to me as I was visiting, and it's even become more attractive as I've served you and loved you. There's a unity here. We need to make sure that unity is not about who we are as a culture at Jefferson Park. That unity is based upon us all being committed together under his headship. One of the best ways to secure that unity is to be praying together regularly. That's what I want us to be known for, a church that is unified because we are always praying to the head to keep us unified and to keep us focused on what matters. Not what our opinions are, not what our culture thinks, but what his word says and how we're supposed to live according to his headship. Verse 18. He is the beginning. This is very similar to being declared the Alpha and the Omega, or at least the Alpha part of Revelation 21 and 6. He is the beginning. He is the beginning of a new creation, of a new order. This is further described. He is the firstborn from the dead. Again, this isn't the fact that he's born. He has a special status. He is the first one that's risen from the grave. He is the one who has conquered death and sin, and we get to participate in that. We get to participate in his resurrection and his victory. Death has lost its sting. We are no longer afraid of death. We are beginning a new creation because God has begun it in us. Continuing with verse 18, that he might be preeminent. What is the most important thing to you right now? Is it where you're going to go to lunch afterwards? Is it where you're going to do the rest of the day? Or is it Jesus Christ? Is he preeminent? He is preeminent. Ontologically speaking, he has the status of being the great God, the Almighty One. He is preeminent. Are you recognizing him as preeminent? Are you recognizing him as the most important thing in your life? If you are not, you are missing the most important thing that you could have in your life, and it is Jesus Christ. Your attention must be putting him above everything else. He is worthy of all your attention. Verse 19 gives us the ground. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. Here we have just the beautiful doctrine of the incarnation. We just celebrated this with Christmas. The divine was wrapped with a human nature. The Father was pleased to send the Son down to take upon a nature like ours exactly except for without sin. He is able to be the head of the church, the one who is preeminent because he is God himself. It's the clearest declaration. This is God. That's why he doesn't need to depend upon angels or anything else. We have a purpose to reconcile all things in heaven and on earth. This is very similar to God will be all in 1 Corinthians 15:26. God will reconcile all things. We have set this world into a chaos. We have said we're going to fight against God rather than seeking to submit to him. He is seeking to reconcile us even though we are his enemies. All things. Let's think about creation first. We'll get to us being reconciled. How will creation be reconciled? Let me ask a different question. Do we need to help creation be reconciled? I don't think so. Many people will look at Romans 8 and they'll say, creation is groaning for redemption. We need to go out and help redeem it. It doesn't have that imperative in it. It just says creation's groaning, and that groaning is supposed to give testimony to the Spirit that's groaning in our heart, longing for that glorified state when Christ will come back and fix everything. Our Band-Aids can't fix creation and the chaos that we've created in it. Our focus needs to be worshiping God, the Creator, and longing for his new creation, along with the creation that we corrupted. We only cause more trouble. How will we be reconciled? This is our last phrase. Making peace by the blood of the cross. He's reconciling all things to himself by making peace by the blood of the cross. Peace here is that great Hebrew concept of shalom, having unity, having reconciliation, being in harmony with God. We long for peace. We long for the Sabbath. We long for the rest that God created us for. We will be restless until God brings it. Why did peace have to come by the blood? Why does peace have to come by the blood. I believe it's revealed in Romans 1:18. The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness by men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Peace has to come because we are all sinners. Because the wrath of God has been revealed against us. We will have no peace because the wrath of God is hanging over us unless we believe in Jesus Christ. If you're not a Christian this morning, you have no peace and you are restless because the wrath of God is hanging over your head. And when you die, it will be poured out upon you. Your soul will suffer eternal destruction. The beauty of this passage tells us that it doesn't have to be that way. There's two ways to live. There's one way in which you continue in rebellion and you suffer the wrath of God. The second way is that you recognize Jesus Christ in His exalted state as not only the Creator, but the Savior. He is God Himself who came to stand between you and God. He took upon Himself a nature just like ours, except for a sin, so that He could stand in your place. Or rather, He could be nailed to the cross instead of you, taking upon God's wrath instead of you. He is our substitute. That's the beauty of Him providing peace by the blood of His cross. He reconciles us who were enemies to God, fighting against God. He reconciles us and gets us the status of being friends with God and even sons of God. See, our sin means we should die and be subject to the wrath of God. Now, you may be able to walk around and pretend you have peace, but you know there is a restlessness about you. Things are not right, and that's because the relationship you were created for, a relationship with God, has been broken because of our sin. If you want peace, it only comes through Christ, because He's the only one, as the God-man, who can reconcile sinful man and a holy God. Friends, I pray that you will seek His peace that will remove God's wrath from you.